It's halftime.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Dom, and that is Trey, and this is the Dom N Trey Show, brought to you by the Right Way Sports Network. We are so excited to get started, and this is our first ever episode, so thanks for tuning in. Trey, explain what we've done in the past.
Yeah, so in our past shows, on our other show, Low Quality Sports Show, we talked about a variety of things, specifically looking at the basketball and the football world. We've done a little bit of hockey as well, but we're going to talk about different league reviews with the NFL, different league reviews with the NBA, different playoff seedings, our player rankings, debates, a little bit of everything, and then in real life challenges as well. We did a 3-point shooting contest, so we're hopefully to have some more stuff we can upload on here too. We do a little bit of everything in the sports world, and I'm really excited to really get into this second show.
Yeah, I think the Dom and Trey Show is going to be a great fit for the Right Way Sports Network. The team has been very supportive from the Right Way Sports Network, and we are super excited to give you guys another quality web show / podcast to use. So without any further ado, we will explain our topics of today, and that is we are going to talk about how the NBA just released the 22-team finish of the season. We're going to explain that and how that worked out, and then we're going to get into who we believe is going to bring home the trophy this year. All right, so I'll start by explaining this. So like I said, the NBA has released that there will be 22 teams now playing for the 8-team playoff spots. So this is how it worked. If your team was within 6 games of 8th place, so 5 of the teams came from the West that were within 6 games. Those teams are the Trailblazers, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Suns. And then from the East, the only team that was within six games of 8th place is the Washington Wizards. Trey, a question for you real quick before we get farther into this. Do you think that there is a major talent differential between the Eastern and the Western conferences?
Before really looking at this new playoff seeding, I was the type of person that said, I think a lot of people are sleeping on the talent in the East. But then when you look at these teams or the teams you just named, I mean, I don't think anybody can discredit what the Pelicans were doing before the break, right? The Suns started off really hot, sort of tempered down, but I think everybody still feels like they're the type of team that can get hot at any time and vote their way into the 8th seed. But I think you look at the Wizards, I think everybody feels like that spot is sort of set. I don't think anybody really sees the Wizards being a threat. And I think after looking at this, you got to say there's some talent discrepancy, right? I mean, look at how loaded the West is, and not only talent discrepancy, but talent at a very young level.
Right.
I mean, there's so many young stars in the West. There certainly is a talent discrepancy, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, not just now, but in the future. Maybe, teams might look out into the East and say, hey, it might be an easier shot at getting straight to the NBA Finals with the talent discrepancy. But certainly, as of right now, there's a big talent gap between the West and the East in the NBA.
Absolutely, and I agree, and it makes me upset because I still feel like there's great basketball to be played in the East.
No doubt.
We saw a down year from a lot of teams in the East, and it's kind of been like that continuously, but there's potential with the Hawks to come on the rise. The Cavs have a really good young team, which I think are going to be a playoff team for the next few years. And, the Hornets with Devontae Graham, Malik Monk kind of stepped up.
Same my team.
So the Miami Heat are pretty good.
Thank you.
All right. And so moving past that, like I was saying, if the 8th seed and the 9th seed are within 4 games of each other, they will play a double elimination, I believe it was, to make the playoffs. So this being said, I don't see this as likely for the Wizards. I'm pretty sure the Wizards are virtually eliminated. They will be playing, but I think they're done, in my opinion. But I think a team like the Pelicans is going to be in this range. The Blazers, I don't think the Kings, the Spurs, the Suns will be able to get there. But I could very easily see Damian Lillard leading that very talented Portland Trailblazers team into an 8 versus 9 game against Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. But carrying on from there, once the playoffs begin with the 8 teams that make it from the Eastern and the Western Conference, it will be like any other playoffs before. But I believe the dates are going to be closer to each other, and it's going to go by very quick. So I think for an NBA fan, that's really exciting because you don't have to wait as long as usual. But we need to take into account how tired these players are probably going to be. And in the 8 remaining games, every team is guaranteed 1 back-to-back game. So the games are going to come at you fast. It's going to be exciting. And I think this is kind of a way a lot of fans want to see the season end. Although I did want to see my Cavs make the playoffs. So every team making the tournament would have worked for me. But we will get into our predictions now for who we believe is going to be the finals matchup and who we believe is going to win the finals matchup. And then, maybe some shakers and movers in the playoffs that are going to shock a few people. Trey, you can kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the shakers and movers. I'm gonna give you a couple of teams to keep an eye on. Number one, the Indiana Pacers.
Yep.
Victor Oladipo again was coming back right when this break took off, and I think everybody, especially you as a Cavs fan, know how tough it is to play in Indiana and tough it is dealing with the Indiana Pacers. Obviously, they're not going to be in Indiana; they're going to be playing in Disney World. But still, when you get a star back like Victor Oladipo, that really brings a jolt to your team, and especially with how well they played without him, they're able to sort of maintain some relevancy without him being there. I feel like now that he's had a little bit of time, obviously it doesn't, help not being able to play with the teams, but just having more time to heal up from his injury, I think is going to come back and look really good. Another team to watch is the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I know this has all been rumors. We don't know what the deal is with Kevin Durant, but I really do expect Kyrie Irving to be back. I think Kyrie Irving is going to be out there, and if they could even give the threat of Kevin Durant possibly being there, I feel like that could, be the inspiration that team needs to make a run, because I think people forget just how good the Nets were as well with D'Angelo Russell and them and that bench. And Kenny Atkinson does a great job of having those guys ready to play. So I think if Kyrie Irving can come back, the Nets are certainly a possibility as well.
Let me hop in here real fast and say that Kevin Durant's agent said, and I quote, "It seems unrealistic for him to be back for the playoffs." If KD were to stun the world, have some storybook return, I think it could be a major shifter in the East. But I think with just Kyrie alone, I don't think that as the playoffs proceed right now, they'd play the number 2 Raptors. I don't think they're strong enough to beat the Raptors. But I can see that being a shaker. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think the Miami Heat have a shot to surprise people. And I think that just comes from the young talent they have, and the senior leadership. It's a good combination when you have Jimmy Butler and then you have Bam Adebayo becoming a all-star level center out of nowhere. So I think they have a shot. And then in the West, I wouldn't be too surprised if you saw the Rockets turn on. I feel like they've been kind of getting pooped on for a long, long time now. And one day, I think James Harden's going to say, "All right, enough of this."
Do you trust the Rockets though? Because it's the same story. There's no reason why they shouldn't be a top 3 team in the West, in my opinion. But they do the same thing every time in the playoffs. We talked about it with Josh Miller earlier, on our other show. But it just seems like they never seem to get going.
Well, the thing is with the Rockets, they're in the West. Every team's so close, with the exception of the Lakers, who are ahead of the Clippers by 5 games, being in first place. The Rockets are only 3 games out of third place. I think that they could go on a little winning spree here, move up a little bit in the rankings, and have an easier potential matchup against someone like the Thunder or the Mavs, in comparison to having to play the Nuggets as who they play right now. And as you know, and before the season started on our Low Quality Sports Show, subscribe to that channel too. On the Low Quality Sports Show, I mentioned that I thought the Nuggets were going to knock the Warriors off their throne in the West, and them being the 3 seed, it kind of shows that they have. So yeah, if I were to have 2 shakers, I'd go with the Rockets and then the Miami Heat. Now we're going to move into who we think the finals matchup's going to be, and my prediction is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks from the East versus the LA Clippers from the West. In Kawhi, I trust. In Paul George, I trust. I think that team is going to edge out LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and that's going to lead to them making the finals.
Yeah, that's a tough prediction to go against. I mean, I think as great of a duo as Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are, I don't think people talk enough about how much of a defensive nightmare those two really are. We're talking about, probably you can make an argument that those are the best two-way players in all of the league, and the fact that they're on the same team, and they really haven't played that much together. Obviously, Kawhi was out there. Paul George was hurt, and then when Paul George came back, we know how Kawhi Leonard feels about load management and whatnot. But you have Kawhi, Paul George, you got Lou Williams, you got a cast of characters that are really great basketball players, and they really mesh well together. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, a similar story there, another defensive nightmare team, really tall, really motivated, got a great coach, and what many believe is the league MVP in Giannis. I wouldn't say that I would be shocked if I saw that matchup happen. In my opinion, though, I'd feel better about picking the Boston Celtics and the LA Lakers in the finals. And my reasoning for that is I trust what I saw from LeBron James and that crew. I think they are the best duo, Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And the way they are playing, they just look like they're on the mission. They really do. I think the passing of the late great Kobe Bryant really gave them that extra motivation they needed to really make that run. And then, obviously the favorite I think should be the Bucks, but I just don't trust the Bucks. I've been a critic of Giannis. I really think he's a top 3 player. I wouldn't argue with anybody who says he's the best player in the league, but what I saw was a Giannis who sort of folded a little bit in the playoffs versus Toronto, and I just trust the Boston Celtics a little more. I feel like this team looks really good. Kemba Walker was a great pickup after they lost Kyrie Irving. Jason Tatum, at times was looking like a top 5 player in the NBA, and then you add on the great coaching of Brad Stevens, and then Jaylen Brown was underrated. He could have been an All-Star this year. So you look at those cast of characters. Marcus Smart is fantastic. They have a great group. They have all the guys you really need to really go up against the Lakers. And you remember the last time they played in Staples Center, it came down to the wire. LeBron James had to do some hero stuff to get the Lakers out of that because the Celtics were right there. And I think that both Bucks versus Clippers, Lakers versus Celtics, I think those are two really good matches that I think are all in the realm of possibility for sure.
Well, I think that the Bucks are, besides the Lakers, but I will say this, I think the Lakers are a fantastic team, probably most talented team in the NBA, but I just don't want to bet against Kawhi, who I personally think is the best player in the NBA with that team around him. I think they're just a bunch of dogs, and I think sometimes that's all you need to win. But I will say with the Bucks, I have very little questioning. Like I could see maybe, like you said, the Celtics. I can almost guarantee you that the Bucks are winning out of the Eastern Conference.
You really think so? I don't think so, man. Like did you not? We saw the same conference finals. I mean, Giannis was great for one game, 2 games, and then Kawhi Leonard essentially eliminated him. I mean, that Giannis, the Giannis that was shook by Drake on the sidelines. You're telling me that Giannis is gonna turn into a new guy? Because look, I get that he played a lot better. He was shooting the 3 ball, but I have to see it to believe it. I really feel like when you look at Brad Stevens, a great young coach, Jason Tatum, the way he was balling, I feel like those guys, I think they really feel like they have a chance to try and redeem themselves. I think that with all that was going on, Kyrie just sort of came back, if I remember correctly, in the playoffs. I don't even know if he was there or not, but it was sort of just like a mess the way they were in the playoffs then. I feel like this Celtics team is going to be a little bit more glued together and really more playoff ready than they were last year.
Right, but I'll pitch you this. I believe that Giannis is one of the, obviously, generational freaks. But it's the team around him, too, not just Giannis. I think Chris Middleton's putting up 20-plus points per game. And then you look at the supporting cast. Bledsoe's playing really good with 15 points a game, 5 assists. And then, Brook Lopez has just always been a stout player for this team. And then, the uprising of Dante DiVincenzo, or however you say his name, being kind of a great defender. He leads that team in steals per game with the guy, Giannis, on that team. I think they play so well as a group, and they have so much experience together, that this is a team that, although is a little top-heavy because it's Giannis and Middleton and everyone else isn't really a star player, I think this is a team that plays well together, knows how to play with each other, and is going to win out of the East, but is ultimately going to fall to whoever they play. I believe the Clippers, but whoever they play in the West.
So let me pitch you this, okay? Let me pitch you this. Looking at that team, you talked about how you felt like the cast of characters with the LA Clippers, you could trust those guys, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at, the Milwaukee Bucks, you talked about Giannis, you talked about Middleton. With the cast that they have around them, role players around them, do you trust them to show up over Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward? Do you trust the guys in Milwaukee? Do you trust what you see in Boston? Because I'm gonna tell you this right now. I think Boston. I think people are really sleeping on the Boston Celtics, and then Kemba Walker is a great player as well.
Fantastic player. I love Kemba.
So,
but I'm just taking the Bucks, man. You just look at their point differential. I believe they had the highest point differential in the NBA. Yes, they did. They had plus 11.2 per game, man. They know how to win. I think they're going to win. They've had that rough experience last year with the Raptors, but now Kawhi is out. I think Kawhi was sort of the LeBron in the East when LeBron left. Kawhi was the one no one could get by. And I think now that Kawhi is on the other side of the conference, or the other conference, I think that Giannis is going to be able to just dominate in the playoffs. And that's who stopped Giannis last year, and he's not there anymore. And as great as the Celtics are and as talented as the Celtics are, we're not even talking about the Raptors, who had a better record than the Celtics. And so I think the Celtics are still young, a developing team for sure. They're still young. Brad Stevens is a great coach. I know you're a Butler guy, so you got to like Brad Stevens. But I'm taking the Bucks, man. I'm taking the Bucks.
So we got to address the elephant in the room here, because you have the Clippers going all the way. You mean to tell me a Clippers team, have they even beaten the Lakers this year? I don't even remember if they beat
I believe they beat them early on. I believe so.
Early on, right? The last time it wasn't pretty. I certainly remember the most recent time when the Lakers beat them by like 12. You mean to tell me that they're gonna get by LeBron James and the Lakers? You think the Clippers are gonna beat LeBron James and the Lakers in a series?
100%. And this is because, like I said, I believe Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA right now. LeBron James obviously is potentially the greatest player of all time. But I think it's everyone else. Anthony Davis, criminally under talked about. Anthony Davis, fantastic. But I think that Paul George is also extremely not talked about enough. I think Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, those guys, Pat Bev, I think he's a little overrated, overhyped. But just the intensity that those guys bring, you don't see anyone else acting like that. And I'm gonna break down this lineup for you real quick. Kawhi, Paul George, Lou Will, the sixth man of the year himself. That man has been a legend in this league. Montrezl Harrell, obviously a great defender, great rebounder, and then you just have a bunch of plug and play dudes like Zubac. He started 62 games for him. Who would have guessed Zubac's going to be a good player? But he fits that scheme perfectly, and that is what you need to beat a team that relies on those stars like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. If you have a good all-around team, a bunch of dogs like I previously mentioned in the video, and a leader like Kawhi Leonard or a leader like Paul George, I don't know who the vocal leader is in that locker room. I can tell you that Kawhi is a grinding out guy. I can guarantee you that. But that team is going to be strong enough to defeat the Los Angeles Lakers, and ultimately, I believe that team's going to be strong enough to beat whoever comes out of the East.
I'm not going to dispute your claims. I think you have great points, but what I will say is this, and I'm shocked that you don't seem to be grasping this as a Cavs fan. Playoff LeBron is a different animal. And sure that as talented as Lakers are, they certainly don't have, I think, the role players to the level that the Clippers do. But when you have LeBron James, playoff LeBron James, you don't need those role players. If you think LeBron James is taking anything longer than maybe a 5-minute rest in each of those playoff games, you're surely mistaken. LeBron James is going to be motivated. I think Anthony Davis is out to prove that he's much better than what the teams that he had to deal with when he was in New Orleans in the playoffs are. And like I said, I think they just look motivated. I think what the Lakers' Achilles heel is going to be is Frank Vogel at head coach. I feel like that head coach versus Doc Rivers matchup. I think Doc Rivers, you want to talk about underrated, I think he's an underrated head coach. I think he's a fantastic head coach. I think we all know how good of a coach is. I think he's in everybody's top tier group of coaches, but I just feel like he doesn't get enough love in that top tier. I say him and Eric Spoelstra don't get enough appreciation for how they manage championship teams. So I certainly think the Clippers have a really good chance. I put it like this: the teams I think are most likely to win the championship right now, especially you have to take into account coming off a break. This isn't a normal season, right? They're coming off of a break. I would put it at Lakers. I'd have Clippers. Then I'd say Celtics. Then Bucks. And then I'd have to throw in Houston. I think you're right. I think if all of a sudden Houston team comes back, James Harden looks a little bit more in shape, maybe this is the year. I always feel like the Houston Rockets are a team that, under the right circumstances, with the right storm, if they're all hitting at the same time, they could be good. I think Mike D'Antoni is a good coach. I think that his system does work. I just think he's had a lot of unfortunate situations where it just hasn't worked out in terms of him going all the way. So I think that Rockets absolutely have to respect it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
All right. Well, we're going to close off the video here. Thank you guys for sitting here and listening to this, whether you heard it on Apple Podcasts or whether you watched this on the YouTube show. Thank you, Malik, and the rest of the team from the Right Way Sports Network for giving us a shot. Trey and I, when we started our low-quality sports show about a year ago, never really saw this, coming. Having 2 YouTube shows and working with one of the, up and comers in the sports arena of things, and we're super excited for this. And we don't have a closing statement yet for the for the Dom N Trey Show. Our thing for the low quality sports show is thanks for hanging out with us, but we don't have one here yet. So in the comments below, tell us what our closing should be. And Trey, you got anything else to add?
No, thanks for sticking around with us. We're really excited about this, and tune in next time.
Yes, sir. All right, peace out.